Dr. Erin Davidson. Today, we delve into the concept of the data commons, innovative approach fundamentally reshaping scientific research by efficiently managing and utilizing extensive data sets. To better understand this concept, let's examine two very different yet equally important scenarios. First, imagine the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, one of the most sophisticated scientific instruments in the world, where subatomic particles collide billions of times each second. Each collision generates enormous amounts of data, measured in petabytes daily. In contrast, consider a small rural health clinic where critical patient information, laboratory results, and historical data reside on outdated, fragile computing systems. Despite the stark differences in scale and resources, both institutions grapple with the same overarching issue: effectively and responsibly managing continuously expanding data sets. The challenges faced by these diverse settings have propelled the development of data commons, a centralized and collaborative framework designed to ensure the effective use, governance, and preservation of scientific data. The data commons is structured around three essential pillars. The first pillar is scalable storage. Effective data management begins with secure and resilient storage solutions capable of handling data across scales, from gigabytes to exabytes. This storage must ensure durability, robust security protocols, systematic cataloging, comprehensive metadata tagging, and meticulous version control, ensuring no critical data is lost or irretrievable. The second pillar revolves around governance. This entails creating clear and robust policies that define data access rights, permissible uses, and comprehensive audit trails. Strong governance frameworks are fundamental to fostering trust within the scientific community and ensuring that data sharing is responsible, ethical, and reproducible. The establishment of such policies helps mitigate risks, protect privacy, and maintain the integrity and credibility of scientific endeavors. The third pillar is dedicated compute infrastructure, emphasizing data localization, processing data in proximity to its storage. By conducting analyses where the data reside, researchers can achieve significantly enhanced efficiency, reduced computational costs, decreased environmental impact, and minimized data transfer times. This approach also allows researchers to maintain tighter control over their data sets, ensuring privacy and compliance with ethical guidelines. These foundational pillars align seamlessly with the FAIR data principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable.
I'm Dr. Erin Davidson, and for the next 3 minutes, we will dissect a deceptively simple artifact, the research charter. Think of a charter as a legally binding promise between your data and every future scientist who will touch it. Done well, it functions like an orchestra score, compact ink that guarantees dozens of instruments will converge on the right chord at the right bar. 1. Mission sentence. Condense the entire purpose of your study into one breath. Identify your primary audience, the wound you intend to heal, and the measurable relief you will deliver. Example: our neonatal sepsis pipeline will cut diagnosis latency by 10 minutes, preventing 2 deaths per 1,000 births. Note the presence of concrete numerals. Phrases such as enhance insights belong in glossy brochures, not scholarly charters. Precise. 2. Outcome metrics. Select exactly 3 and make them auditable. Coverage, latency, and accuracy form the classic triad, but commit to whichever subset truly governs success. 95% metadata completeness and median analysis latency under 3 seconds are falsifiable. A reviewer should be able to run a single query and grade your claim true or false. Serious. 3. Stakeholder lattice. Diagram who owns, who analyzes, and who regulates the data. Clinicians care about accessibility. Integrators obsess over interoperability. Auditors demand findability. Mapping these priorities forces you to confront hidden conflicts before they metastasize into ethics board delays.
grave, decisive. 4, timeline checkpoints. Abandon the 50-item Gantt chart. Provide 4 milestones only. Prototype ingest, first automated analysis, peer review, and public release. And pair each with the pull request number you will open. In doing so, you fuse ambition to evidence. Every goal has a commit hash baked in. Confident. Warning. 5, risk register. Name the single threat whose realization would crater the entire project. It could be privacy leakage, an unfunded storage bill, or a machine learning drift that quietly poisons conclusions. Then record 1 concrete mitigation. A charter devoid of risk reads like marketing copy. A charter that owns its risk sounds like principal investigator material. Approving, challenging. Run the 10-second charter test. Hand the document to an educated outsider, wait 10 seconds, and ask what problem you solve, by when, and by which metric. If they answer in one breath, sign and push. If they need a second breath, revise. Firm, thoughtful. Remember, for the next few minutes, we will master a habit that saves both money and scientific goodwill. Repository recon, the systematic hunt for existing. Open data sets before you collect one more byte on your own. One why reinventing data is expensive. Each terabyte you gather from scratch consumes reagents, technician hours, and long-term storage fees. Worse, duplicative collection inflates the carbon footprint of science and fragments reproducibility. A recent meta-analysis showed that more than 40% of life science papers could have reused public data, yet chose not to. Repository recon is therefore both ecological stewardship and scholarly rigor. 2, define a minimal viable schema. Before opening any search portal, list the columns and units without which your analysis would collapse. A neonatal sepsis model, for example, truly needs just 3 fields: patient age days, blood culture result, and time to antibiotics minutes. Writing this schema guards you against shiny object datasets brimming with extra variables, yet missing the single field you require. 3, deploy a 3-layer tool stack registry layer. Begin with DataCite and Re3 data. They catalog thousands of repositories and let you filter by discipline, license, and metadata completeness. Repository layer. Inside portals such as NIH, DB, GAP, Zenodo, and Kaggle, run schema-aware searches. If the interface lacks schema search, export the catalog as a CSV and grep locally for your column names. Gray layer. Finally, scout preprint servers and GitHub README files for data on request notes. A courteous email often unlocks treasures that major registries overlook. 4, apply a 3-step evaluation rubric, technical match. You want at least 90% overlap with your schema, plus parsable formats and sampling rates inside 1 times to 10 times your target. Ethical compliance. Look for documented consent, de-identification, and institutional review numbers, especially if minors or marginalized groups are involved. Legal compatibility. Choose licenses you can honor later. Creative Commons. Buy is safe. Creative Commons by non-commercial often blocks commercial translation of your findings. Add the 3 scores, rank candidates, and store the rubric table in your README. Reviewers will praise the transparency. 5, decide. Adopt, augment, or abandon. Adopt a dataset when it covers at least 80% of your schema under a permissive license. Augment when 2 critical fields are absent. Plan a focused supplemental collection instead of a full rebuild. Abandon when technical gaps or licensing landmines outweigh reuse value. 6, integration etiquette. Fork or mirror the source, so a broken link never wipes your provenance. Record every transformation, unit conversions, column renames, missing value imputations in a changelog. Cite original authors in every figure legend and in your metadata JSON. 7, case vignette. Our lab once needed 300 structural brain scans with motion scores. Using OpenNeuro's GraphQL interface, we filtered by T1 weighted modality and frame-wise displacement columns. 1 dataset scored 86 on our rubric. We adopted, added 13 pediatric scans locally, minted a new digital object identifier, and spared 6 calendar months plus 48,000 United States dollars, enough to fund 2 extra experiments. 8 action items.
Append a repository recon table to your charter, columns for repository, DOI, rubric scores, license, and adopt, augment, abandon decision. Then ask yourself one final question. If that external repository vanished tonight, could you still reproduce your results tomorrow? If not, mirror before you commit. Repository recon is not scavenging, it is collaborative scholarship. By standing on well-documented shoulders, you elevate both your own project and the global edifice of science.
Our focus now shifts from pipelines to policy, the quiet timber that keeps a thriving data commons from toppling when new users flood in. 1Y governance equals trust at scale. With 2 collaborators, a handshake works. With 200, those handshakes must harden into rules a computer enforces for you. If you skip that step, 3 bad things follow in rapid order. A privacy breach, irreproducible results, and often funding loss. A 2023 study traced 42% of biomedical paper retractions not to fraud, but to fuzzy data handling rules. Governance is the antidote. 2, the policy pyramid, picture 5 stacked layers. User, strong passwords, 2-factor login. Team, role-based rights. Who may read raw, who may write processed. Project, audit logs, retention periods, metadata standards. Institution, your university's IRB and legal guidance. Nation, HIPAA, GDR, or other statutes. Your charter must cite at least the middle 3 layers and should link to real document IDs, not vague lines like follows GDPR. 3 access control patterns. Old school ACLs list every user by name. Fine for 50 people, brittle for 500. A BAC-attribute-based access control-tags files and people with traits such as pediatric or PI approved and lets policy code decide at query time. ABAC scales gracefully and bakes governance into your metadata, a perfect match for the fair idea of reusable data. 4 audit trails, the ledger of reproducibility. Every read, every write, every delete should append an entry to an immutable log. Keep that log for at least 3 years, or the longest funder embargo, whichever is larger. Timestamp each row with cryptographic certainty, never a workstation clock that someone can backdate. 5 consent and de-identification. When data describe real humans, record consent in machine-readable codes, research general, research specific, commercial allowed, or commercial prohibited. Document your de-identification method, hashing, truncation, or differential privacy. And note the residual risk of re-identification. 6, cost governance. Surprise invoices crumble budgets. Set alarms when storage climbs more than 10% in a week or compute jumps 2 standard deviations above median. Put those thresholds in your charter so finance can sleep at night. 7, incident response. Define an incident with numbers. More than 100 unauthorized records read or pipeline downtime longer than 300 seconds. Escalate to the on-call engineer within 15 minutes, the data protection officer within 1 hour, and if needed, the public within 72 hours. 8, governance checklist for your charter. Link your role permission table. Cite your audit log retention plan. Reference your IRB approval ID. Name the national statute that applies. HIPAA section 164.308, for example. Declare incident thresholds in the escalation path. Run a 30-second audit. Hand the checklist to a peer and ask them to locate each item in your repo. If any link is dead, fix it before committing. Governance may sound bureaucratic, but it is the promise that your breakthrough will withstand scrutiny 5 years from now. Code can be refactored in an afternoon. Public policy endures. Embed clarity today, and tomorrow's collaborators will call your project trustworthy instead of risky. Now let's talk about the least glamorous but quickest to derail topic in data science: money. A brilliant pipeline that runs out of cash is like a rocket that empties its fuel before reaching orbit. Let's learn how to keep your data commons aloft. Know what you're paying for. A data commons has only 3 billable ingredients: storage, compute, and transfer. Storage is where bytes sleep. You pay by the gigabyte per month. Compute is where bytes wake up. You pay by CPU second or GPU second. Transfer is how bytes travel outside the cloud. You pay by gigabyte egress. List these 3 on a whiteboard and circle the one that will dominate your project. For genomics, storage rules the bill. For climate models, compute does. For public dashboards, egress often surprises everyone. To forecast using a 1-2-5 model, multiply today's consumption by 2 for next semester and by 5 for year 2. This rule is not magic, it is a cushion against success. If your project gains attention, growth curves turn exponential overnight. Budget for that acceleration now, so finance is impressed later. 3, choose storage tiers like luggage classes. Think of cloud storage like airline seats. Hot tier is first class, fast, costly. Warm tier is economy, slower, cheaper. Cold tier is cargo, glacial, almost free. Park raw data you rarely touch in cold. Keep frequently queried summary tables in hot. Automate the move between tiers with a life cycle rule that triggers after 30 days of inactivity. Every terabyte you downshift saves real dollars every single month. 4 set budget guardrails, not budget handcuffs. A guardrail is an automated alert, not an automatic shutdown. For storage, alert when volume grows more than 10% week over week. For compute, alert when daily cost rises 2 standard deviations above the 30-day median. Those 2 numbers, 10% and 2 sigma, catch anomalies without spamming you every hour. 5 tag everything at creation. Add a cost center tag to every bucket, table, and notebook the moment you create it. Grant Alpha, Pilot Beta, Teaching Gamma. At month's end, you can attribute 57% of spend to Grant Alpha instead of staring at an opaque invoice. 6 optimize, but only after measuring. Many teams compress data or refactor code before they know which 10 queries eat 90% of compute. First, run a 1-week cost profile, then optimize the worst offenders. Premature optimization saves pennies and costs days. Write the budget section of your charter, include 3 lines, no more. Forecast table, hot, warm, cold storage for 24 months. Guardrail thresholds, 10% growth, 2 sigma compute. Contingency plan, if spend exceeds forecast by 20%, freeze new data collection until review. 8 quick case tail. A student lab once stored uncompressed microscope images in the hot tier, 40 terabytes at 32 cents per gig per month. A lifecycle rule plus lossless compression cut cost by 87%. Savings funded an additional graduate stipend. Money unspent is money you can redirect toward discovery. Remember, funders love ambition, but they sign checks for plans. A realistic, transparent budget signals maturity and wins trust. You have a mission, metrics, and a budget, but they will gather dust unless real people with real authority decide to help. Today, we explore storytelling, the invisible bridge between your charter and the minds that fund, review, or regulate it. 1. Why narrative beats bullet points. Neuroscience shows that a well-told story lights up sensory, motor, and emotional regions simultaneously. A bullet list lights only language centers. When you need approval, light up the whole brain. 2. Build a 1-sentence story spine format. In a world where X, we will do Y, so that Z. X, current pain. Premature infants die waiting for lab cultures. Y, Ash, your action. Predict sepsis latency with real-time vitals. Z, Sangström's societal relief. Saving 2 lives per 1,000 births. Read that spine aloud. If it drifts beyond 1 breath, tighten it. 3. Stage your cast of stakeholders. Protagonist, the patient, planet, or policy you aim to rescue. Guide, your research team and charter. Antagonist, time, cost, or complexity. Place your funder or reviewer into the guide role with you, never as a mere wallet. Use phrases like, together we will. 4. Show, then tell replace abstract metrics with visceral imagery. Instead of 95% metadata completeness, say, every 5th data row has vanished. We patch the hole before someone misdiagnoses a child. Numbers then feel like consequences, not algebra. 5. Use the rule of 1 for slides. 1 idea, 1 graphic, 1 emotionally charged fact per slide. The brain can absorb only 1 novelty every 6 seconds. Flood it and retention crashes. Your charter presentation will likely run on a virtual meeting. Single focus slides survive bandwidth glitches. 6. Anticipate the villain question stakeholders think and risk. Lead with it. What worries us most is privacy leakage. Here's our differential privacy shield and our 2-hour breach escalation. Naming the villain before they do builds trust. 7. End with a call that appoints them. Close with a sentence that assigns a heroic role to your audience. By approving this charter today, you reduce neonatal mortality tomorrow. People fund futures in which they are protagonists. 8. Practice in the medium of use. If you pitch on Zoom, rehearse on Zoom, screen share lag and all. 11 Labs audio plus a silent slide deck is often clearer than a laggy webcam. Before you push your charter, craft a 60-second story using the spine, the villain, and the call. Record it. If playback makes you believe, others will too. Today we tackle something subtle but critical, keeping your research charter relevant through version control. Think of version control not merely as tracking changes, but as maintaining clarity and trust within your team and beyond. First, let's understand why a charter cannot be static. Your project evolves. Methods shift, collaborators join or leave, regulations update. If your charter remains stuck at version 1.0, it becomes a historical artifact rather than a useful guide. Version control solves this elegantly. Every change, big or small, is time-stamped, attributed, and documented. It's like a clear historical record showing precisely who adjusted the goals, why, and when. Without version control, projects quickly become confusing, even controversial. Next, let's adopt good versioning hygiene. The core principle is semantic versioning. 3 simple numbers: major, minor, and patch. A major number signals substantial changes that might alter your core aims. Minor numbers show incremental updates, new methods, datasets, or personnel. A patch number indicates tiny fixes, typos, or clarified sentences. Here's an example. Version 2.1.4 clearly communicates to everyone that you're on the second major iteration with 1 notable minor update and 4 small corrections. This simple numeric language creates immediate transparency, reducing misunderstandings. Your charter lives in a README markdown file in Git. Every time you commit an update, write commit messages clearly. Avoid cryptic notes like fix stuff. Instead, write explicitly added privacy policy update or adjusted data retention to match IRB guidance. Future you and anyone auditing your project will thank you for this clarity. Another best practice is branching. Consider branching as having parallel tracks. One main track, often called main, is the stable, official version. New changes should happen on separate branches. Only after a thorough review and approval are they merged back into main. Branching protects your official charter from sudden, unreviewed changes. Conflict resolution happens when 2 people change the same text at once. Don't panic. Git clearly flags conflicts. Calmly review each conflict line by line. Collaborate to decide which change best aligns with your project's mission. Often, these discussions help clarify your goals further. Release tags are another simple yet powerful technique. Every significant milestone, such as submitting your charter for funding, gets a tag like V2.0 final. Tags allow easy reference back to critical project points, showing stakeholders precisely what they agreed to fund or review. Finally, let's briefly discuss change logs. Each charter update should have a short entry in a dedicated file called changelog.md. Write clear, concise bullet points summarizing the updates. Version 2.1, adjusted retention policy per IRB guidelines. When reviewers or collaborators ask what changed, you hand them this concise document, instantly clarifying. To recap, your version-controlled charter isn't merely a requirement. It's your insurance policy against confusion and controversy. Every commit message, branch merge, and release tag represents clarity, trust, and professionalism. Make your charter clear, keep it current, and communicate changes effectively. Your future self, collaborators, and reviewers will thank you. Think of this README as the front door to your project. Anyone who visits your repository first encounters this document. Let's ensure it warmly welcomes readers and clearly defines your mission. First, start your README with a clear, concise mission statement. In one straightforward sentence, define your project's purpose, your audience, and the measurable benefit you provide. Here's an example. Our research aims to shorten diagnosis time for neonatal sepsis by 10 minutes, potentially saving 2 lives per 1,000 births. Avoid ambiguous phrases. Clarity and concrete numbers build immediate trust. Next, briefly list your project's measurable outcomes, typically 3. For example, your outcomes could include 95% metadata completeness, median analysis latency under 3 seconds, and accuracy over 98%. These metrics clearly communicate what success looks like and make your project easily auditable. Follow this with a concise section on your target audience and stakeholders. Clearly outline who benefits directly from your research, who supports it, and who may need to regulate or oversee it. For example, list clinicians, policymakers, funders, and your immediate scientific community. Demonstrating clear stakeholder awareness enhances your project's credibility. Next, document your data governance policies briefly yet clearly. Reference your role-based access control tables, audit logs, and IRB approval ID explicitly. Include clear links or document IDs. Instead of writing, "We follow GDPR," specify exactly how you comply, such as data governance complies with GDPR Section 32 on data security. Your README should also include a succinct data management plan. Mention storage tiers clearly, hot, warm, and cold, and outline your projected data growth. State clear budget guardrails like storage alerts trigger at 10% weekly growth, compute alerts activate at 2 standard deviations above median daily usage. After your data management plan, provide a concise repository reconnaissance summary. Clearly state existing open data sets you evaluated, your scoring rubric results, technical match, ethics, license, and your adopt, augment, abandon decisions. For instance, we adopted NIH dataset ABC 123, scoring 90% technical match and compatible CC-BY licensing. Include your incident response policy, defining incidents concretely, such as unauthorized access exceeding 100 records or system downtime beyond 5 minutes. Clearly state your escalation process, engineer response within 15 minutes, data protection officer within 1 hour, and public disclosure within 72 hours if necessary. Conclude your README with your semantic versioning strategy. Clearly explain your major .minor .patch system, specifying when you update each number and how you handle version tags. Also, include a brief note about your changelog file, stating how it documents important updates clearly and chronologically. Finally, ensure your README is formatted cleanly with markdown headings, bullet points, and direct links. Use straightforward language. Your charter should be readable by stakeholders outside your immediate research circle. Before pushing your README file to Git, do a quick peer review. Hand your README to a colleague and ask, what problem do we solve? How do we measure success? And how will we manage our data? If they answer accurately in one breath, your README is ready to commit. If not, revise for clarity. A clear README charter isn't merely documentation. It's a critical asset that communicates your mission, methods, and safeguards. It reassures reviewers, empowers stakeholders, and guides your research team effectively. Write clearly, document thoroughly, and commit responsibly. How you manage ethics can either elevate your project or severely undermine its credibility. First, let's clarify consent. At its heart, consent means participants understand exactly how their information will be used and explicitly agree to this use. In research, consent isn't a one-size-fits-all checkbox. It involves clear, plain language, understandable even to someone completely unfamiliar with your project. Consent should explicitly state the types of permitted use. Examples include general research, disease-specific research, commercial use allowed, or commercial use prohibited. Clearly documenting these permissions helps everyone involved feel secure and respected. Remember, ethical research often involves vulnerable populations, children, marginalized groups, or individuals unable to fully consent for themselves. In these cases, gaining informed consent becomes even more crucial. Always ensure your consent documentation explicitly covers vulnerable populations with added clarity and ethical consideration. Next, let's discuss de-identification. De-identification transforms personal data so individuals cannot easily be identified. However, not all de-identification methods offer equal protection. Popular methods include hashing, truncation, and differential privacy. Hashing converts sensitive identifiers into seemingly random strings of numbers and letters, making direct identification difficult. Truncation removes or abbreviates sensitive data points, such as birthdays reduced to birth years, to maintain anonymity. Differential privacy adds a controlled amount of random noise to data, allowing accurate statistical analysis without compromising individual privacy. Clearly document your chosen method and its justification. For example, state explicitly, data are hashed using SHA-256 encryption and truncated birth dates to ensure anonymity. Explicitly documenting your method reassures participants, ethics boards, and future collaborators. Always quantify the residual risk of re-identification. For instance, even thoroughly anonymized data might allow re-identification if combined with external sources. Documenting residual risks shows honesty and foresight. For example, despite truncation, a 1 in 10,000 risk of re-identification remains, mitigated through restricted data access. When handling sensitive data, transparency is essential. Clearly define who has access, under what conditions, and how long data will be stored. For instance, your policy might say, access restricted to lead researchers and encrypted at rest, data purged 5 years post-project. Transparency here builds lasting trust. Compliance with ethical standards, like IRB protocols and national laws such as HIPAA or GDPR, should be clearly outlined in your charter. Instead of vague compliance statements, explicitly cite the relevant regulations. For example, clearly state, all participant data complies with HIPAA section 164.308, including strict access controls and audit trails. A simple proactive step, periodically audit your data ethics policy.
Every 6 months, revisit consent forms, de-identification protocols, and compliance statements. This brief audit helps maintain ethical integrity as your project grows. Finally, integrate these ethical considerations explicitly into your README charter. List consent types obtained, the de-identification method, residual risks, and your compliance with specific ethical regulations. Briefly but explicitly summarizing these ethical details ensures stakeholders clearly understand your commitment. Ethical data handling isn't merely a procedural step. It's foundational to trustworthy science. Respecting participant privacy and documenting your ethical safeguards transparently creates confidence and trust among collaborators, reviewers, and participants.
Today, we approach the essential topic of preparing your research for peer review. Successful peer review is not just about scientific rigor, it's equally about transparency and reproducibility. Let's carefully explore how to prepare your project so it withstands thorough scrutiny and confidently passes review. First, remember, peer reviewers are your scientific peers, busy researchers seeking clarity, credibility, and ease of verification. Your project's readiness depends largely on clear documentation and accessible data carefully aligned with the FAIR principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Begin by clearly organizing your data sets. Ensure every data set is findable, clearly labeled, and linked to a permanent digital identifier like a DOI. Avoid ambiguous naming. Instead, use descriptive labels like Neonatal Sepsis Vitals 2025.csv to facilitate reviewer understanding. Next, accessibility is critical. Clearly document exactly how reviewers can access your data, specifying protocols and any required permissions. If special access requests or authorizations are necessary, clearly state how and where reviewers obtain them. Unclear accessibility frustrates reviewers and negatively impacts your credibility. Your datasets must also be interoperable, easy to integrate with standard analysis tools. Stick to common formats, such as CSV for tabular data, JSON for structured data, or widely used imaging standards. Providing example scripts for loading or analyzing data demonstrates thoughtfulness, helping reviewers easily test your claims. Reusability ensures reviewers and future scientists replicate your results effortlessly. Clearly document the exact data transformations applied, from initial ingestion to final analysis. Include metadata explaining data origin, collection methods, and any pre-processing steps explicitly. A simple, comprehensive README file often makes the difference between frustrating uncertainty and smooth replication. Version control your analysis scripts carefully. Clearly annotate any scripts used in data processing, statistical analyses, or visualization with descriptive comments. Use semantic versioning consistently, major.minor.patch, to help reviewers track exactly which code corresponds to your results. A clear changelog further bolsters reproducibility. Ethical clarity is paramount in peer review. Clearly reference your IRB approval ID and explicitly document consent and de-identification procedures. Specify clearly how you adhere to ethical standards, such as GDPR or HIPAA, citing specific regulations rather than vague compliance claims. Before submitting for peer review, conduct an internal audit. Hand your project documentation to a trusted colleague unfamiliar with your work. Can they quickly locate your data sets, run provided scripts, and clearly explain your project's ethical protocols? If yes, you are ready. If not, clarify documentation further. Finally, transparently address potential limitations or known issues up front. Clearly stating data constraints, methodological limitations, or uncertainties builds reviewer trust. Rather than appearing as weaknesses, transparently discuss limitations, show scientific maturity and realism. Your readiness for peer review ultimately hinges on clarity, transparency, and meticulous preparation. By systematically documenting data, methods, and ethics, you demonstrate thoroughness and integrity, qualities every reviewer respects deeply. Prepare your project with care, clarity, and precision. Your efforts will transform peer review from a daunting obstacle into an opportunity to demonstrate your project's robust, reproducible value. The careful planning that protects your data commons when unexpected issues arise. Even the best managed projects encounter incidents. How quickly and transparently you respond makes all the difference. First, clearly define what constitutes an incident in your project. Incidents typically involve unauthorized data access, prolonged downtime, or significant data integrity breaches. For example, clearly specify thresholds like unauthorized access to over 100 records or system downtime exceeding 5 minutes. Explicit criteria eliminate confusion and enable swift, consistent responses. Next, establish a clear escalation plan. Outline precisely who responds, when, and how. A strong escalation policy typically involves multiple layers. For example, immediately notify an on-call engineer within 15 minutes, escalate to a data protection officer within 1 hour, and publicly disclose severe incidents within 72 hours. Clear timelines reassure stakeholders that you handle incidents transparently and promptly. Incident response requires comprehensive documentation. Immediately begin logging incident details: what happened, when, who identified it, response measures, and outcomes. An immutable incident log creates transparency, builds trust, and enables thorough post-incident reviews. Speaking of reviews, always conduct a structured post-incident analysis. Gather your response team, clearly identify incident root causes, document the precise timeline of events, and determine what measures prevented the incident from becoming worse. Clearly articulate lessons learned. These are invaluable for improving future responses. Communication during incidents must be clear, timely, and carefully managed. Internally, maintain open communication among your team, clearly outlining tasks and updates. Externally, communicate transparently with stakeholders, including participants, funders, and regulators, providing clear, factual updates about the incident status and response measures. Timely communication prevents misinformation and preserves trust. Proactively prepare public-facing statements. Clearly outline incident basics: what happened, your immediate response, and next steps. Avoid technical jargon. Communicate plainly and directly. Example statements might read, "We experienced unauthorized data access affecting approximately 100 records. Immediate security measures were enacted, and affected individuals have been notified." Integrate your incident response protocols explicitly into your project's governance documentation. Clearly link incident criteria, escalation paths, communication strategies, and reporting responsibilities. Documenting incident response transparently ensures team readiness and reassures external reviewers and stakeholders. Train your team proactively. Regularly simulate incidents, testing escalation plans, response effectiveness, and communication clarity. Periodic drills ensure team readiness and reveal gaps early, allowing continual improvements in your incident response plan. Ensure clear accountability. Clearly designate specific individuals or roles responsible for each step: initial reporting, technical response, stakeholder communication, and post-incident analysis. Clear accountability accelerates responses, reduces confusion, and enhances overall incident management effectiveness. Review your incident response plan periodically, at least twice annually. Revisit your criteria, escalation policies, communication templates, and post-incident analysis procedures. Adjust based on prior experiences, evolving project needs, and changes in regulatory expectations. Regular review keeps your incident management robust and agile. Finally, remember that effective incident response isn't merely reactive, it's proactive stewardship. By transparently documenting your preparedness, clearly communicating, and methodically learning from incidents, you demonstrate your project's commitment to integrity and trustworthiness. Be transparent, responsive, and prepared. Your careful incident response planning safeguards your project's credibility, trust, and long-term success.